Hi everyone. It's been a couple days since my first video and things are moving very quickly. I've talked to colleagues in other East Coast states and most of their schools have suspended face-to-face instruction. So we're now faced with a challenge of scores of faculty having to move their face-to-face instruction into a fully online environment, most of them in a pretty truncated amount of time. So today I just wanted to talk about some of the challenges and some tips and maybe some tricks, some things to keep in mind that have come up in our conversations with faculty that we're in touch with at Design Incubation. We also have some good news in that we have some faculty who are more experienced with online instruction who are hoping to come forward and join me in providing some content and resources around their practices in moving to a fully online environment. And so some of what they say might be different from some of what I've said, and I think that that perspective will be fantastic. So I think one of the challenges that has come up repeatedly from people is just like communications from school and students moving home. For us, students were asked to vacate the dorms almost immediately, and that meant that even though I was able to meet with some of my students, some of them were in the process of getting home. Additionally, some of the communications from our institutions have not always been fully clear, and we found that particularly some of the younger students, may be misinterpreting moving online to classes canceled. And I've had that come up also with some of my students who are out on internship locations. So I think that's where clarification from faculty is really helpful. Getting people started again. So there's many schools are sort of providing a waiting period, giving people a few days or a week off for faculty to prepare. And I think that's fantastic, especially for people who are not already in the online environment. But it also means that we have to kind of like rev people up to start again. And I do think that even if you're not creating online content and assessing that at this point, continuing to have connection with students, I really recommend doing a screen video just like I'm doing here. I found that to be really useful in my online classes. Just saying, hey, this is the situation, this is where we're at, and I'm going to be back in touch in a week and here's what to expect. I've done that and I usually just use QuickTime, and for those of you who are still trying to figure out what platform to use for delivering course content, you can just put that on Dropbox or Drive and send everybody a link via email. And at least then they feel like they have some face-to-face connection with you, even if there is that waiting period. One of the things I just want to mention is that it's not all bad. You do really have an advantage. As somebody who's done quite a bit of fully online teaching, I would say one of the challenges of that kind of instruction is that we never, quote unquote, meet the students in real time. And you've all met your students and already have a working close relationship with them. So as challenging as this is, you don't have to get them to sort of do the buy-in for the class that sometimes happens with fully online instruction. So just keep that in mind as like something in your back pocket as kind of an advantage that you have here. Something that is challenging in an online environment is that unless something is assessed, whether it be with an actual grade or some other means of assessment, it's very difficult to ensure that the entire range of student in your class actually does the reading or does the work if it's not a just regular project. And so for those of you who've done online before, you know that assessment is kind of the bear. Like if something's assigned, there has to be some metric at which you sort of check to make sure it's done. Unless you all have all perfect students. For me, I have the students who will do it regardless because they're invested in their education. And then I have some students who are like maybe not the strongest students, who need that assessment in order to have the motivation to keep going. And I will say that one of the challenges of working in a fully online environment is the amount of time that a faculty member spends on assessment. And so I do think that that's something you should be thinking of right away and sort of preparing for psychologically, if nothing else. When I say assessment, I find that some of the most effective assessment is assessment that comes straight through either Blackboard, your whatever course management tool your institution uses, or some kind of online gradebook. We have a couple different options at my institution, but that means that the grade or the assessment gets pushed directly to them. And usually they have push notifications, so they'll get notified. And that really helps them just understand that it's just, there's some accountability. And we have a lot of social accountability and face-to-face instruction that we can lose online. And so one of the things that you need to think about is just like building that sort of capacity for that positive peer pressure that happens in a face-to-face situation, or positive social pressure around getting something done, and how can you do that in an online environment. One of the great ways of, or some of the great ways of doing that are with engagement around VoiceThread, which I've done some videos on earlier in this series. Dropbox Paper, which I'm going to learn about this afternoon and hope that we'll be sharing out about soon. And then you really have to think about whether or not you want to try, in addition to the asynchronistic environment, meaning people can be doing other things, whether you try and have like in real-time engagement via WebEx, Zoom, Slack, something else. And I do think that that's really helpful in this situation where there's a lot of confusion. When I met the students, quote unquote, face to face in real time, they, there was a sort of obvious difference in the beginning to the end of the conversation in terms of them sort of understanding where we were going and what we were doing in terms of continuing instruction, but in an online format. So advice, I don't want to get, have this go too long, but some advice just from what I'm hearing from faculty who have maybe a few days or a week now under their belt of making this transition is start early with a connection. If you can't do the real-time interaction via WebEx, Zoom, Slack, something, then try and do a video and at least send them a video of yourself and talking about what this transition is going to look like, and the fact that you're struggling through it as much as they are. I would say it's been super helpful for me to use an online grading system where they see their grades in real time. That's Blackboard. We have another couple systems that have been rebranded for us internally, so I don't think they'd be helpful for me to list, but I know a lot of you have online grading systems, and I do encourage you to use those for online learning. I didn't sort of do that until I started doing online-only classes, but I found it extremely helpful. Keep in mind that you are going to probably have to create more assessments or opportunities for assessment than you would in a face-to-face class, and start to think about what that's going to look like and let them know that there is going to be that assessment. One of the things I like about the course management systems, and whatever your school uses is fine, is that a student will get a push notification when something's due. And I found that when I moved to using my institution's course management system, I had much better completion of assignments. Again, for those students who maybe weren't at the top of the class and just doing the work because they believed in it. And then I would just say, remind everybody that it's a tough time and we're going to be have to be flexible, and that some of what you start in the first couple weeks of online instruction may have to evolve. That feels particularly pertinent at a time like now because of the sort of global economics or the global situation, but that even happens as somebody's teaching in an fully online class for the first time in regular time. So I don't think that that's out of range in terms of communicating to students that there may be some change expected. Also communicate to students that it is more difficult to have that communication, and for you're doing your best to try and explain to them what is expected, but there will be some misinterpretation. Sometimes, we're just not as clear in writing or even on a video as we are when we sort of take the temperature of a room face to face. And the student should let you know immediately. If I have a student who says, XYZ wasn't that clear, I can immediately go and make that change and have everybody be able to see it. So they really need to be participatory in the online system to make it successful. So I hope this is helpful. And again, if you have experience teaching online, we're looking for help from you to create some of these modules and hope to get some of that stuff pushed out in the coming days. So as usual, stay tuned. Thanks.